What's up guys, it's that Panda guy and I'm here again with another video, and today we're actually going to be looking at the last, I think it was 4 hours. I kind of gotten 2 hours of recording, so this was about 4 hours before resets, but this was for the island raid that ROK LM4S versus the rest of the island was in, and this was honestly an extremely exciting thing to watch. This is like one of the only recordings that I've been excited recently to kind of edit, and this is why it's pumped out so fast. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but usually when I pump out a lot of these videos, they're a lot slower. The editing's a lot, it takes me a lot longer. Just I'm not as excited about like a lot of these just normal whale fights. It's kind of the same thing every time, and this was really nice to see. I feel like it was well played on every side for the most part. I also want to mention I will be doing a lot of transitions in this video. I am still kind of working on it and testing it out. That being said, we're going to talk about everything that happened. So to start off, what happened was SSI kind of did a surprise attack 4 hours before Island Raid ended, and they basically were able to take their village, and they ended up using a building speed skill, so they were able to kind of quickly push ROK. And I will say from experience in a situation like this that ROK was in, plus based off information that I got, honestly, like I think that they just had almost nobody online. You kind of get in this comfortable feeling where you think, oh, we've already won, this is already all over, it's basically wraps, right? And then you have these alliances, and I feel like this happens a lot in whale brackets, these big alliances, these whale alliances playing a strike at the last minute. So honestly, I would never let my guard down, especially near on the last day of Island Raid. But basically they had, I think, 10 plus players online when this strike happened, and SSI came in roaring and they went crazy. I will say it was lucky on ROK's part that there were as few alliances showing up right when SSI had started this. I think the main three that hit were SSI, O_U, and it was Val. And Val actually was not very active. I don't think that they were in on this. I think OU or whatever were like the main other group that were kind of coordinating with SSI. The others started moving later on, but I think it took them too long to kind of get organized, get in here, and get on the move. So as you could see, obviously what ends up happening is ROKs really stretched them because they have to defend on two fronts. And then it comes even worse when like Val and all of them start hitting, and they can't like put too many resources on a group like Val, for example, who are only coming for their village. And honestly, I think ROK played this pretty well by giving up some of their fronts because and I know it comes down to ego a lot of times. For example, where SSI kind of took this village and stuff. They have two towers they're holding here to maybe attack this village, plus attacking SSI's towers. It's not really worth it. Plus, they're not really in a position going the offensive, and they should really be focused on defending the 7s, the 8, etc., right? And what ends up happening is you do see them do this by giving up this level 6, giving up the towers that connect to level 6, just deciding it's not worth stretching themselves too thin, because if they kept holding these towers, they would basically have to hold these 2 towers. They would have to hold the 2 towers on the 6, connecting to their 7, and they would also have to, fight on the OU front, which means that they would stretch themselves way too thin, especially considering the situation they're in right now, where they have a very big lack of numbers. And it's really a bad situation for them, but honestly I think they handled this pretty well. I think them giving up the fronts was a really smart decision. And then you also see what they do is they focus on OU. And I actually had been talking to someone and I was like, they really need to swarm this level 7 back, because OU ends up taking the level 7 and they just start quick building, right? They speed build and they're heading towards the 8, and they're going to cause ROK a lot of pain. And they're actually burning the tower that's connected to level 7. So if they burnt that tower and got it down, it would have put ROK back a pretty substantial amount, and I think that would have just hurt them too much, and the second you let these guys get in a really comfortable position, they're just going to be causing you too much pain, and you really want to cut the head of the snake, or whatever the analogy is. And while it's already an issue to cut off OU and try to keep them from taking the 7 and whatnot and just cut them back, it'd just become a bigger problem if they allowed them to get in a really good position, because the 7's going to instantly put them out of commission, instantly knock them back, whereas they would have to burn through towers and push these guys back, or go on the defensive while defending from SSI at the same time. Whereas what they end up doing is they give up those towers, meaning that they can focus on OU for a certain amount of time, and then they can refocus on SSI once these guys kind of connect to their 7 or the towers near their 7, which they ended up building to go in a protective stance. But you do see here they swarm out this 7, they do take it back, and they end up cutting off some bases, and they zero some pretty big boys. And you won't see it right now, but like I said, handled pretty well from ROK, if I had to say so, and I definitely think dropping these towers was the right call. Otherwise, they were just going to be egoing and they would have been taking worse trades than they really needed to. I will also say SSI was put in a really bad spot because what ends up happening is they connect to the 7, but based off how they built, they ended up, one, running out of their building speed, meaning that it was going to take them a lot of time for each tower. Then even if they did burn the towers, which takes a lot of time given that they are fighting one of the biggest alliances in the game. So burning through these towers, one, will take a while. Two, actually burning the tower itself, will take even longer since these guys are freaking monsters. It's just a lot to handle. And I mean, like I said here, you will see this 7 drop soon, and you'll actually see some bases get zeroed when that does happen. But yeah, ROK was going freaking ham. I will say, like I said, these enemies went freaking crazy too. OU was going ham too. I will say their whales carried a lot because honestly, the fact that these guys were able to put as much pressure on the field as they were to force ROK to divide as much attention as they were, to constantly force them to bring a group of whales over here to kind of put a lot of pressure. It just went a long way, and it just like kind of helped SSI spread out a lot of room. And like I said earlier, I think the biggest issue was the fact that, or I don't know if I said it earlier, but the biggest issue I think here is honestly they were putting really good pressure. They were spreading ROK a lot. If they had more people hitting at the same time, if other alliances were coordinated better, this could have went a lot harder. But at the same time, if a lot of alliances were in on this, I feel like there would have been a leak to ROK and ROK would have known. So it's hard to say if this would have went as well as would in theory and stuff. But obviously if these other alliances were able to coordinate better at the time, if if Spec, for example, right here as they're building now, which it's already been I think an hour, if they were able to build earlier, this maybe or sooner, they maybe would have been able to help put more pressure. If NWO was able to build sooner, that would have helped. I mean, you also do see LM4S does try their best to support how they can. Obviously, they're not some massive whale alliance like ROK or OU, or have these massive whales, but they are able to kind of exert amount of pressure. They're able to kind of hold back NWO a little bit. I mean, I guess NWO actually provoked them, but they are able to hold down Spec, meaning that Spec's not going to be rallying ROK's outpost as much as they started trying to initially. And I will say after like 2 hours, it's kind of cooled down because I think at some point, OU kind of got stumped out. A lot of their energy was kind of suppressed. And I think also SSI got in a situation where they were holding, they were just fighting 2 towers. And at some point, ROK started getting more active. They started having more people coming online. Too many people became alert, and they just weren't able to kind of put as much pressure as they needed. And I think their initial burst was where they were kind of putting them in a really tough spot. They were able to force them to teleport like a million times, but at some point, it just wasn't enough. Also, freaking... Dude, this is like the example of monster whales are just too much. Like you have one guy over here able to just drop this tower, and these guys are swarming him. Obviously, they're gonna be able to drop all his marches, but I feel like a whale like that, no matter what, as long as you don't have whales on your side who are kind of on a similar caliber, he's going to be trading positive, even taking on like 10 T6 dudes swarming him off the field. There's just no winning that with like average T6 players. And that's really the biggest issue with having a group like Spec here or something. There's just not really a lot they can do. And honestly, the best I think some of these groups could have done was dropping a tower and even if they weren't trying to fully commit to that tower build, they just drop the tower. They bring some of ROK's whales into like, for example, NWO. If they maybe dropped more towers, they forced ROK whales to jump over and kind of divert some of their attention into swarming the towers or rallying the towers or whatever. That would have diverted some attention, even if it's only for 30 seconds, even if it's only for a minute. Honestly, being able to pull off a lot of this pressure on SSI and stuff does just help loads. Also, here's a rally. They were trying to drop this tower. Honestly, this tower dropped to half health pretty quickly. If they had enough pressure over here, I think they honestly would have dropped this tower build that SSI was dropping. I mean, honestly, it didn't matter at the end of the day because they still weren't able to break through. But dude, I gotta give a freaking round of applause. This freaking fight made me excited. I was hype watching it, especially the initial push. It was definitely amazing. Also, I apologize for the video being so long. I try not to have too lengthy of videos. I also know that I can only commentate so much, on the actual footage that I have until I kind of don't have enough to talk like a ton, right? But there was so much footage, I just didn't want to leave out too much of it. There was at least 2 hours of footage. I tried to cut it down a little bit, speed it up a bit, and I still had around 20 minutes of footage. Okay, I know at some point just started getting to babbling like I am now after at some point, but either way, I did want to cover this. I thought this was a really exciting island. I had so much freaking this, like I said, you don't see a lot of these that are as exciting as this now. A lot of the whale fights are kind of straightforward, very predictable. And I mean, I still think that this bracket was pretty predictable in any case, even if like ROK got pushed sooner. I think like you got to recognize the issue is really these other groups that are maybe supporting SSI, even if it's a 6v2, the issue is they can't hold on, they can't obviously heal as much as ROK does, and a short burst fight like this is exactly what they needed. Honestly, I loved how this went because if this happened at the start of the island, obviously ROK would have been struggling. They maybe would have gotten pushed back. But even then, they probably would have zeroed a lot of these guys. They would have freaking crippled them pretty early on. And it would have just become like a shit show, right? Whereas, like, pushing it the last few hours, not only are you catching these guys off guard, you're able to just exert a lot of pressure in a short amount of time. And you're obviously not having to fight for the full week or whatever in Island Raid, and it just works out pretty perfectly. Especially, like I said, catching these guys off guard. It was literally perfect. It was literally the perfect play to kind of get the best value out of all their fights here with ROK. And even then, ROK still went ham. I mean, you see these guys waking up. You see the field pressure getting worse and worse. You do see LM4S here too, kind of building into spec, trying to draw some of their attention over there and keep them off ROK because they will actually start rallying on this outpost with OU. And honestly, it was just like, what can these really rallies do at some point? Plus, even their whales are going to be struggling. I mean, I know ROK was kind of split between SSI and OU, but honestly, at some point, SSI just can't do too much, right? Like all they can do is swarm these towers. All they can do is rally, and these guys are swarming into some of the, obviously the best heroes in the game, right? Like I wouldn't even say some of the best. They are swarming into the best heroes in the game, and like armament wise, vehicle wise, and all that kind of stuff. So they're not really able to do much. They're still kind of fighting on the field, and OU only has a few maxed out couple of whales. They're kind of up there on that caliber, and they can only do so much on the field alone. And they're really just going to be draining their bags, especially fighting a group like ROK. I know I keep saying it, but you're fighting one of the top groups in the game. It's just impossible to come out trading very positive when you're fighting as many players as you are, and they couldn't stop reinforcements. The garrison's like insane in the outpost. Obviously, they were trading pretty heavily in favor from what it looked like, at least the numbers. And no amount of rallying is really going to drop the outpost without like substantial swarms and just being able to suppress the field completely. And it just wasn't enough, Honestly, round of applause though. Like I said earlier, this was definitely a freaking fight to behold, guys. This was definitely one of the more exciting ones that I've experienced in a while. It just made me freaking, it made me feel like a child on Christmas Day watching this. But these swarms are freaking painful. I really wish I could have seen the outpost reports, all of them, because there were so many swarms. I feel like a lot of those swarms got absolutely shredded. Like I saw some coming out from like the OU wells, but dude, I was like I was not liking those numbers, honestly. Some of the marches were just dying. And another thing I noticed with whales, by the way, and I know this happens in every single island, but I still can't get over the fact that I see this. Like I saw some rallies just dying on ROK towers, right? And maybe there's some reason behind it, right? But why never cancel out like 500k troops or 300k troops or just something like that, right? The rally is going to get shredded. The people in it are getting absolutely shredded at that point. The trades are going to be looking like absolute garbage. Like I get wanting to drop this tower, but dude, at some point you can recognize you are not able to just completely suppress the field. You can recognize the rally is getting absolutely demolished, and you're not getting enough people filling the rally. So at some point it's just worth canceling it to avoid getting unnecessary losses on your side, because you're going to be getting really bad losses on your side. It's just, I don't know. And yeah, honestly, I think that at some point these guys just recognize this was a lost cause, Like I said, give it enough time and these guys start to wake up. Like the longer this goes on, the more disadvantageous it is for these groups to try to fight this out. And honestly, it was just like, what do we do? Like kind of a what do you do situation. And I mean, SSI can definitely manage, right? They were freaking going crazy on the field here, but you know, like I said, you're running into their territory, you're running into their towers, into their bases where they get the refresh advantage and stuff, and you're fighting a group that's obviously bigger than you too, because these guys came in with a few billion more might. So once these guys started waking up, just fighting in their territory didn't make any more sense. They weren't dropping these towers. They were losing all their rally trades, from what I understand. So it just became pointless. You know, they didn't have enough towers they were connected to either. SSI was kind of built in a spot where it was really uncomfortable to build even more, right? Like building into their 7, they kind of would have to build multiple towers around. And even if they wrapped around, 1, they would have been super vulnerable. 2, it would have taken too much time to build all these towers. And 3, it was just like, what's the point at this, you know, at this point? We got our 6, blah, 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 blah. And I don't even know what their rank was at the end of the island. I assume it was either like 6th or 7th, I feel like, you know, and if they got 7th place just after capturing that 6th, that would absolutely suck, because that means that all this basically happened for nothing, because 7th through 8th get the same rewards. And you know, because I can't tell anybody what the rank was. If you were in this island, tell me what SSI's rank ended up being. I know that Val ended up capturing like the next village, but even then, I feel like they still got like 8th, or they got 7th. I don't know how many villages were captured, or if any other villages were even captured. Know ROK didn't have theirs. I'm not even sure what I'm talking about at this point. I am surprised though that they didn't expect a push like this at all, because I swear in every single island that I've seen where it's the same situation as this, like whale groups getting suppressed. I know it even happened when the actual tournament was happening, because I think Hans had said it when we were out on the streets or something, right? But they were like, "Oh, our group, you know, managed to take back the 6," and they were laughing about it. But I'm like, you know, like you would imagine these groups would be completely prepared. But then again, nobody really cares at the end of the island. They're like, "All right, we've already won. Who cares what happens anymore?" Right? But it's like you should expect these guys to do big pushes, and every time they're never expecting it, you know, and people always get their like village back and stuff. And honestly, even if they were prepared, it's hard to say if they'd be able to defend like this, or defend both fronts. I mean, I imagine they would have been more prepared to kind of set up a defensive standpoint and just kind of held these guys off from instantly capturing their 6 and stuff back. Um, you know, maybe built some towers, but I don't know, man. It's really hard to say kind of prospectively, but I don't know. You guys let me know what you guys thought about this video, though. I really do appreciate you guys for watching, as always. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. This was an exciting one for me to do. I edited this really quickly, or as quickly as I could. I did add a lot of transitions, you know, like the little flashing where you kind of go from scene to scene. I thought that would be a bit better besides me just kind of flicking from like fight to fight to fight to fight just randomly, right? It kind of creates that feel, you know what I mean? But you guys let me know what you guys thought. I appreciate you guys, like I said, for watching as always. Hope you guys did enjoy the video, and I hope you guys have a great day or night though, and I will see you guys in the next one. And that is about it. Peace out.